looked like we were having some technical difficulties with our stream. Hopefully we're back up and running now. Let me take you back to Bernie Sanders.
Was a national poll had us 1 point up. In the last number of months, we have won 11 state primaries and caucuses. A few days ago, we won in Idaho and Utah with 78% of the vote. If there is a large voter turnout tomorrow in Washington, I think we're going to do just fine here. And for all the folks from Washington, caucus is at 10 o'clock. Get there earlier. And for all the folks in Portland and in Oregon, you know that the all the folks in Oregon. See, that's what happens when you run all over the country. Okay, you're going to have your mail-in primary, and it's important. And I know the state here has done everything that it can appropriately to try to increase voter turnout. Please fill out those ballots as early as possible. Now, you know, one of the criticisms that has been thrown at our campaign is that, well, you know, Bernie's a nice guy, he has good ideas, but he can't win a general election. And I just wanted to deal with that issue. All of us agree, or I expect all of us who are here today agree, that it would be an unmitigated disaster for our country if somebody like a Donald Trump became president of the United States. Now, the thought of Trump in the White House brings forth rather strange reactions in our stomach, leading to nausea and other symptoms. But here's the good news. Donald Trump is not going to become president of the United States. And the reason for that is the American people are much too smart to allow that to happen. And I'm happy to tell you that in virtually every national and statewide poll, virtually all of them, that has been done having Bernie Sanders up against Donald Trump, we win with overwhelming numbers. The last CNN poll, and you know, some of these numbers vary depending on the poll, had us beating Trump by 20 points. And the reason why Donald Trump will never become president of the United States is the American people will not vote for a candidate who insults Mexicans, and Latinos. The American people understand that we are fighting a war now to destroy ISIS, a terrorist organization, not Islam, a religion. The American people will not vote for a presidential candidate who insults women every day, who insults veterans, and who insults African Americans. And I want you all to remember something that some people have forgotten, and that is that before Trump became a candidate, he was one of the leaders in the so-called birther movement. You remember that? And it is important for all of us to understand what that very, very ugly movement was about. It wasn't disagreeing with President Obama. People have the right to do that for sure. It was trying to delegitimize his presidency. It was trying to say that he really doesn't have the right to be president because he was not born in America, a total lie. And that is a very dangerous thing to do in a democracy. It was not only an insult to the African American community, with Obama being the first African American president, it was the insult to all of us. Now, the president's father was born in Kenya. My father was born in Poland. I find it interesting that nobody has asked me for my birth certificate. Do you think maybe it just might have something to do with the color of my skin as opposed to Obama's? I think so. Now, this campaign is doing well because we are listening to the American people and not billionaire campaign contributors. When we began this campaign, we had to ask ourselves a very simple question. Sadly, to run for president today requires raising hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the sad truth. And we had to decide, will we establish a super PAC and beg corporate America and billionaires and Wall Street for money? We agreed with you. And I'm the only candidate out there that does not have a super PAC, does not want a super PAC, does not need a super PAC. Now, all of you know, every person here knows, that one of the great crises that we face as a nation is that this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision is now enabling billionaires to buy elections. And what we said is, look, this campaign does not represent Wall Street. We don't represent corporate America. We do not represent the billionaire class. We do not want their money. And we went out, instead of doing a super PAC, we went out to the middle class and working families in this country, and we said, if you want to support a campaign which is going to transform America, which is going to take on the big money interest, help us out. And in 10 months, we have received almost 6 million individual campaign contributions. And that in itself is revolutionary, because what we have shown is you can run a national winning campaign without being dependent on big money interests. Anybody here know what our average campaign contribution is? That's right, $27. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, Secretary Clinton has chosen another path in order to raise her campaign funds. She has established a number of super PACs, and in the last filing report, her largest super PAC reported $25 million coming from powerful special interests, including $15 million from Wall Street. In addition to that, Secretary Clinton, as you know, has given a number of speeches behind closed doors to powerful Wall Street institutions for $225,000 a speech. Now, what I have said is that if you're going to give a speech and get paid $225,000, it must be an extraordinarily brilliant speech, right? It must be a speech that will address and resolve all of the world's conflicts. It must be a speech written in Shakespearean prose. And for that kind of money, it must be a speech of such great importance that she should share it with the rest of the world. Now, Secretary Clinton has said, well, look, she is prepared to release her transcripts if other people do the same. So I am prepared this morning to make a dramatic statement. I am prepared to release all of the transcripts of the speeches I gave on Wall Street. You ready? And that'll be pretty easy to do because there are no speeches to Wall Street. Now, I don't know, I cannot imagine why it is that Secretary Clinton got $2.25 for her speeches, and they haven't even invited me to go to Wall Street for $20,000 or $2,000 or $2. I don't know why. But it may have something to do that my message to Wall Street might be a little bit different than Secretary Clinton's. And here was what my message to Wall Street will be whenever they choose to invite me. And I got my cell phone on. I am waiting for the ring from Goldman Sachs. Come on down, Bernie. We want to hear from you. But here's what I would say. What I would say is that as a result of the greed and the recklessness and the illegal behavior of the people on Wall Street, this country was plunged into the worst economic downturn in the modern history of this country. What I would say is their greed and illegal behavior resulted in millions of Americans losing their jobs, losing their homes, losing their life savings. What I would say is that today, after Congress bailed out Wall Street against my vote, that today 3 out of the 4 largest banks on Wall Street are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. And what I would say that when you have a handful of banks with such incredible economic and political power, that it is time to break them up. We need a financial system that works for small and medium-sized businesses, for ordinary Americans, and not just for a handful of CEOs on Wall Street. And this is what I would also tell them. Last month, 5 or 6 weeks ago, Goldman Sachs reached a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion. Now, they were not alone. Other large banks also reached even larger settlements. And the reason they reached that settlement is that they were selling packages of worthless subprime mortgages, defrauding the American people. Now, one of the reasons that so many Americans are angry is they see a criminal justice system which comes down very heavily on the poor and on people of color. In Vermont, Oregon, or any place, some kid gets picked up with marijuana, that kid is likely to have a police record for the rest of his or her life. But apparently, if you are an executive on Wall Street whose greed and illegal behavior destroyed this economy, nothing happens to you. So what Wall Street has got to learn, and corporate America has got to learn, is that we are going to bring justice back to a broken criminal justice system. If you break the law, even if you are a Wall Street executive, you are going to pay the price. All of you know that foreign policy is an enormously important part of what a president does. And on this issue, Secretary Clinton and I have very profound differences. In 2002, in the most important debate on foreign policy in the modern history of this country, I listened very closely to what President Bush and Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld and all those guys had to say. I listened to their ideas and their arguments as to why we should go to war in Iraq. I didn't believe them. I voted against that war. I led the opposition to that war. Secretary Clinton heard the same arguments. She was in the Senate, I was in the House, heard exactly the same arguments. She voted for that war. She was wrong. I was right. Right now, all over this country, we are facing a growing crisis in terms of clean, drinkable water. And if anybody thinks it is just the disaster in Flint, Michigan, you would be mistaken. We need policies in this country to protect clean drinking water. I will do my best to phase out fracking. As Secretary of State, Secretary Clinton strongly supported fracking around the world and still supports it in this country. This campaign is doing well because we have taken the radical idea that maybe instead of listening to billionaire campaign contributors, we should listen to ordinary Americans. And what working people are telling me throughout this country is they cannot get by on $9 or $10 an hour, that they cannot take care of their families or themselves on starvation wages, and that we need, and I congratulate Oregon and the state of Washington for making real progress in this area. The simple truth is, in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. Not in Vermont, not in Oregon, not in Washington, and that is why together we are going to raise the national minimum wage to $15 an hour. And this campaign is listening to women. And women are telling me they are tired of sexism, tired of earning 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. And I know that every man in this arena will stand by the women in the fight for justice and pay equity. And this campaign is listening to young people. And one of the gratifying aspects of this campaign is seeing young people, the future of this country, becoming increasingly involved in the political process. To the young people, I say, this is your country. This is your future. Get involved in making the decisions that will impact your lives for decades. And young people are saying to me, how does it happen, Bernie, that for the first time in the modern history of this country, our generation will have a lower standard of living than our parents. How does that happen? There's been an explosion of technology. Workers are producing more. Why is it that we are seeing the American dream disappear? Now, my father came to this country at the age of 17, didn't have a nickel in his pocket, never made any money at all. But he was part of a wave of people who worked hard so that his kids could do better than he and my mom did. And that's what happened. That's called the American dream. And the younger generation does not deserve to see that American dream disappear. And the other point that young people are making to me is they say, look, throughout our lives, our parents, our teachers, everybody said, it's imperative that you go out and get the best education that you can. And that's right. We live in a competitive global economy. We need the best educated workforce possible. And then people say to me, young people say, we did it. We went out to college. We did the right thing. How does it happen that we end up $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 in debt because we got an education? What this campaign is about is asking the American people to think outside of the box, outside of the status quo. Don't accept the reality that the media or corporate America presents to you. That does not have to be the reality of the future. If we need, as we do, the best educated workforce in an increasingly competitive global economy, we should not be punishing millions of people for getting that education. We should be rewarding them. When we talk about public education, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, it was great that we had free public education from the first grade through the 12th grade. That was great. But the world has changed, the economy has changed, technology has changed. People today need more education. And that is why I believe that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, we've got to be talking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. This is not a radical idea. I mean, here's the truth. Everybody knows this. And it's just a question of thinking outside of the box. 50 years ago, you graduated high school, the odds are you could get a pretty good job and make it into the middle class 50 years ago. Today, in most cases, that is not the situation. Today, in many cases, people need a college degree. What I want to see happen in this country is that every kid in America, I grew up in a family without a lot of money, my parents never went to college. I want every kid in Oregon and Washington and Vermont to understand that if he or she does their schoolwork seriously, does well, takes school. What? Now you see, this little bird doesn't know it. Oh, I think there may be some symbolism here. I know it doesn't look like it, but that bird is really a dove asking us for world peace. No more wars. In any case, we've got to rethink higher education. We've got to make sure that every kid in this country, this again is not a radical idea. I'm attacked. Oh my God, what a radical idea. Free tuition, public colleges, universities. Everybody here should know that exists in Germany, that exists in Scandinavia. And what is important about that idea is I want children in Portland and Vermont to understand that even if their families don't have a lot of money, if they do well in school, yes, they will be able to get a college education. And we have to deal with another absurdity, and that is we have millions of people in this country who are being suffocated with outrageously high levels of student debt. Anybody here with student debt? Holy God. Let me rephrase the question. Anybody here without student debt? All right. And what we need to do, I have talked to people all over this country. I talked to a guy, 55 years of age. He's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He is more, well, there's another one. He is more in debt today than he was when he took out that debt. People should not have to pay 20, 30, 40% of their incomes in student debt. And that is why we're going to give people the opportunity to refinance that debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, what I'm often asked is people say, well, Bernie, that's a great idea. You're Santa Claus. You're giving away all this free stuff. You want public colleges and universities to be tuition free. You want to lower student debt. That's nice. How are you going to pay for that? I will tell you how we're going to pay for that. In the last 30 years, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth from the middle class to the top 0.1%. In other words, the very, very rich are getting richer. Almost everybody else is getting poorer. In 2008, 2009, the United States Congress bailed out Wall Street. Now, I believe that today we need to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. That tax, again, not a radical idea, would bring in more revenue than we need to make public colleges and universities tuition free and reduce student debt. The American people bailed out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's time. to help the middle class of this country. There are Republicans running all over this country talking about family values. And I want everybody to know exactly what those Republicans mean when they talk about family values. What they are saying is that no woman in this arena, in this state, in this country should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. What they are saying when they talk about family values is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. Jane and I have been married 27 years. We got 4 great kids, 7 beautiful grandchildren. When we talk about family values, our values are a little bit different than Republican values. We are talking about ending the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. Today in Washington, today in Oregon, today in Vermont, a working class or low-income woman has a baby, and because she does not have sufficient funds in many cases, she will have to separate herself from that newborn baby in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and go back to work to earn enough money to take care of her family. We are one of the few countries in the world, not only major countries, even poor people, poor countries understand the absurdity of that. And that is why together we are going to pass legislation in Congress, 3 months paid family and medical leave. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And they are telling me they are tired of living in the shadows, tired of being exploited, tired of living in fear. They want comprehensive immigration reform. I want comprehensive immigration reform. Comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And if Congress does not do its job and pass immigration reform, I will use the executive powers of the president to do everything that I can. Immigration reform is about uniting families, not dividing families. Immigration reform is about stopping the deportations we see every day. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking, number one, how does it happen that in this great country we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, 2.2 million people. Largely, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. And they are asking, how does it happen that we keep turning on the television and we see unarmed people being shot by police officers? Now, I was a mayor for 8 years in Burlington, Vermont. I've worked with police throughout my entire life. Vast majority of police officers are honest and hardworking and have a very difficult job. It is not easy being a police officer today, but like any other public official, when a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to make police departments reflect the diversity of the communities in which they serve. We have got to rethink the so-called war on drugs. It turns out that over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have police records for possession of marijuana. It turns out that the Federal Controlled Substance Act lists marijuana as a Schedule I drug right next to heroin. That is why I've introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. But when we talk about drugs, all of us have got to recognize that in my state of Vermont, neighboring New Hampshire, and all over this country, we have a major crisis in terms of opiate addiction, heroin addiction, and people dying every day from overdoses. What we have got to do as a nation is to understand that the most effective way to deal with drug and alcohol abuse is not making them crimes, but making them health issues. And that takes us to another issue, and that is that we need a revolution in this country in mental health treatment. Whether it is substance addiction or whether it is mental health crises, such that today in this country, you got thousands of people at this moment who are walking the streets of this country who are suicidal and or homicidal. We need to make sure that people get the mental health treatment they need when they need it. This campaign is listening to the Native American community. And every person in this country who has studied American history for more than 5 minutes understands how disgracefully and shamefully we have treated the first Americans from day one. From day one, before this country was a country, Native Americans were lied to, they were cheated, and their treaties were abrogated. Right now, throughout this country, in Native American reservations and in Native American communities, unemployment rates sky high. In Native American communities, suicide rates are off the charts. Kids are dropping out of school. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse is rampant. If elected president, we will change our relationship to the Native American community. We owe that community so much. The best parts of our culture emanate from them. And by the way, when we talk about respect for the environment, when we talk about understanding that we have to live as part of nature, not against nature, that's what we got from Native Americans. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment, and in that regard, I have talked to scientists throughout our country and throughout the world. The debate is over. Climate change is real, caused by human activity. And what the scientists are telling us is pretty scary, and that is, in many ways, they have underestimated the potential danger of climate change. They now tell us that by the end of this century, this planet could be 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer, more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the oceans, more rising sea levels, more international conflict as people fight over limited natural resources. We have a moral responsibility to future generations to make certain that the planet we leave them is healthy and habitable. We have got to, in an unprecedented way, because this is a planetary crisis, not an American crisis, a planetary crisis. We have got to work with China, Russia, India, countries all over this world, take on the fossil fuel industry and tell them that their short-term profits are not worth the future of this planet. And when we do that, we can create millions of decent-paying jobs in wind, solar, geothermal, and other sustainable energies. Coal is not the future of this country. Oil is not the future of this country. Energy efficiency and sustainable energy is the future of this country. Now, I have been criticized very often for saying this, so let me say it again. In my view, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. That's right. This is a basic human issue, and what it means is that at a time when every other major country, the UK, France, Germany, Holland, Italy, Scandinavia, Canada, all of them managed to provide health care to all people as a right, you know what? We can and we will do that in the United States. Now, the Affordable Care Act, and I'm on the committee that helped write the Affordable Care Act, has done some very good things. We've gotten rid of pre-existing conditions. 17 million Americans now have health insurance who did not. We have done away with discrimination against women in health care premiums because they are women. But we still have a long way to go. Today, 29 million have no health insurance, and many of you have high deductibles and high co-payments. Is that right? And if you got a high deductible or high co-payment, you don't have any money, you know what happens? You don't go to a doctor. And the result of that is that every year thousands of Americans die because they don't go to the doctor when they should. And then we have the absurd situation of the drug companies ripping us off unconscionably. We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. People in this country die because they can't afford the medicine that they need. They are suffering because they can't afford the medicine they need. 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford the prescriptions their doctors are writing. And last year, the 3 major drug companies made $45 billion in profit. Drug companies profit and Americans die. We are going to change that dynamic. And on top of all of that, we end up spending far more than any other country for health care, almost 3 times the British, 50% more than the French, and far more than the Canadians. And that is why, together, we will fight for a Medicare for all health care system. Our proposal guarantees health care, comprehensive health care to all, saves middle-class families thousands of dollars a year on their health care bills. Everybody in this room, in this arena, understands a very profound political point, and that is that in our country, real change never takes place from the top on down, always occurs from the bottom on up. A 100 years ago, when workers were being exploited ruthlessly, were being treated like animals and had no rights on the job, very brave people came together and said, we are going to form unions, we're going to engage in collective bargaining. A long time ago, you had incredibly brave African Americans and their white allies saying that in America, we are going to fight for a country where segregation, racism, bigotry does not exist. And those people, black and white and Latino, they marched out on the streets, they went to jail, some of them died, but they fought to fight against racism in America from the bottom on up. 100 years ago today, and many young people don't even know this, 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote, did not have the right to get the education they want, did not have the right to do the work they wanted to do. But women and their male allies said, no, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. We will fight against sexism. And women went to jail, incredibly courageous, 100 years ago. Women standing up, going on hunger strikes, went to jail, died, and they ended up getting the right to vote and making major advances against sexism. If we were in this arena 10 years ago, no time at all, from a historical perspective, and I want you to think about it, 10 years ago, somebody here jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that by the year 2015, gay people in this country will be able to marry in 50 states in America. If somebody said that 10 years ago, the person next to him would have said, you are nuts, what are you smoking? Now, but what happened is that for decades, against incredible bigotry, vicious bigotry, the gay community and their straight allies said over and over again that in this country, people have the right to love whomever they want, regardless of their gender. And I'll give you another example, close to home, about how real change takes place. And that's what I'm talking about. How do we make real change? If we were here 7 years ago, no time at all, and somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, this federal minimum wage of $7.25 is a starvation wage. People can't live on it. We are going to have to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, if somebody said that 7 years ago, person next to him said, you're crazy. You're talking about more than doubling the federal minimum wage. You're nuts. It can't happen. That's too radical an idea. But you know what happened? Very brave people in the fast food industry, in McDonald's and in Burger King and in Wendy's, they went out on strike and they protested. And they made the case that every American deserves a living wage. And then you know what happened? In Seattle, $15 an hour. In Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Oregon, $15 an hour. My point is that what starts off as a radical idea, in a few years people say, well, of course $7.25 is starvation. Of course people need $15 an hour. Where we are right now is at a pivotal moment in American history where I believe millions of people are looking around them and they are saying the status quo is not acceptable. And they are saying it is too late for establishment politics, establishment economics, the same old, same old. They are saying, look, let's be clear, people who are funded by Wall Street and the drug companies are really not going to be the agents of change that we need. people all over this country are looking around and they're suddenly seeing it. Now, the media doesn't talk about it, and that's another problem that we have. But people are looking around them and say, why is the middle class of this country disappearing? Why do we have grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth without paid family and medical leave, without health care for all? Why are millions of people leaving school and going deeply in debt? Why do we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? Why do we have more people in jail than any other country? Why do we have a campaign finance system that allows billionaires to buy elections? Why do we have veterans sleeping out on the street when we give tax breaks to the richest people in this country? And that is what this campaign is about. It is about not accepting the status quo, to understand that if we do not allow the Trumps of the world to divide us up, if we stand together as black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, gay and straight, men and women, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. What this campaign is about is understanding we need a political revolution, millions of people standing up and demanding a government that represents all of us, not a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. Tomorrow, in the state of Washington, starting at 10 a.m., there will be caucuses all over the state. And starting on April 27th, people will begin to get their ballots in the state of Oregon. It is my hope and belief that both Washington and Oregon are prepared to help lead this country into a political revolution. Washington and Oregon can help transform this country. Let's do it. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, that was Bernie Sanders' live rally, and you can see
Shut
what
up,
a
Mike.
big crowd he drew.
Shut up, Mike. Stop talking. All right, we're going to go now to a TED Cruz of actually, let's see here. We're going to go into Paul Ryan this week talking about the current state of our political season, our political field.
Today, it is great to see so many young people in the audience. My name is Elise Stefanik, and I am proud to represent New York's 21st District in Congress. Today, it is truly an honor for me to introduce my friend, Speaker Paul Ryan. I first got to know Speaker Ryan as Paul in 2012 when he was selected to be the Republican vice presidential nominee. My job was to help prepare then Congressman Ryan for his upcoming vice presidential debate. As you might imagine, a national campaign takes you to far-flung corners of this country. So the first debate prep session with Paul and his team was in Bend, Oregon. I had prepared reams and reams of first draft of materials, and after Paul reviewed my work, he said, "We need to dig deeper on the policy." No surprises there. And over the course of many weeks of debate prep, I had the honor of watching how Paul would encourage his entire team to understand the power of ideas and to raise our gaze and work towards a brighter American future. After the 2012 election, which was disappointing to our team, I went back home to upstate New York, discouraged about the direction of our country. But I thought about my time working with Paul and how at the young age of 28, Paul decided to run for Congress. It struck me that someone so young could make such an impact on the discourse in public policy. I was 29 at the time, and instead of complaining about the state of American politics from the sidelines, I started the process of running for Congress. And when the odds were stacked against me, 100 to 1, Paul encouraged, stood by, and supported me. Still, the best piece of advice I have received is from Speaker Ryan, who told me, "You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio." He was highlighting the power of listening to the ideas within our communities. In my first year in Congress, I did not anticipate that Paul would become Speaker. This was a job he didn't ask for, but he answered the call to serve. When I talk with my constituents in New York about the qualities that personify an effective public servant, I have come up with 3 characteristics. They have to be hardworking, they have to have integrity, and they have to have political courage to put forth innovative solutions. Speaker Ryan embodies each of these qualities. He is a happy warrior who understands the power of an idea, the power of the American idea and the American dream. So please join me in welcoming my friend and our speaker, Paul Ryan.
Thanks, Liz. Go vote now. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's hear it for Elise Stefanik. Huh? Don't forget to go vote. Thank you for your indulgence, and thank you for your patience. We have votes on the floor right now. I want to thank Elise Stefanik. She is inspiring. I also want to thank all of you for coming here today. I want to thank Kevin Brady, my friend, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, for hosting us here today. I had the privilege of joining this committee in my second term. My seat was right behind these flags. And it's a perfect setting for what I want to talk with you today about. Because it is here, in this committee, that we debate some of the biggest, most consequential issues. We debate our tax code, health care, trade, entitlement reform, welfare reform. This is a big deal to be on this committee. People strive to get on this committee. And understanding the privilege and the responsibility that came along with it, we took our jobs very seriously here on this committee. And we always held ourselves to a higher standard of decorum. We treated each other with respect. We disagreed, often fiercely so, but we disagreed without being disagreeable. I speak of this in the past tense only because I no longer serve here in the Ways and Means Committee. But it almost sounds like I'm, speaking of a different time, doesn't it? It sounds like a scene unfamiliar to many in your generation. Looking around at what's taking place in politics today, it is so easy to get disheartened. How many of you find yourself just shaking your head at what you see from both sides of the aisle these days? I see myself in each and every one of you. I came here as a curious college intern, trying to get a sense of everything, trying to figure out, where to take my own life. I would always ask older, more experienced people, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were my age? Well, here's my answer to that question. Here's what I know now that I want you to know, that you cannot maybe see yourself today. And this is not just a lesson for young minds, but a message for all Americans. Our political discourse, both the kind that we see on TV and the kind that we experience among each other, it did not used to be this bad, and it does not have to be this way. Now, a little skepticism, that is really healthy. But when people distrust politics, they come to distrust institutions. They lose faith in government. They lose faith in our future. We can acknowledge this, but we don't have to accept this. And we can't enable it either. My dad used to always say, you are either part of the problem or part of the solution, one or the other. So I have made it my mission as Speaker to raise our gaze and aim for a brighter horizon. Instead of talking about what politics is today, I want to talk with you about what politics can be. I want to talk about what our country can be, about what our founders envisioned it would be. America is the only nation founded on an idea, not on an identity. That idea is a beautiful idea. The condition of your birth does not determine the outcome of your life. Our rights are natural. They're God-given. They're not coming from government. Now, while it was a beautiful idea, it had never been tried before. Early on, our founders fought to establish a suitable order. They decided that we would not maintain this idea by force. In the first Federalist chapter, in the first Federalist paper, Alexander Hamilton, he wrote that in politics, it is absurd to aim at making converts by fire or sword. Instead, we would govern ourselves with the people's consent. Again, there was no manual for how to do this. That's why we call this whole thing the American experiment. It is still the American experiment. So they made each other, and they made those who came after take an oath to uphold the Constitution. Every generation since has inherited this responsibility. Leaders with different visions and ideas have come and gone. Parties have risen and fallen. Majorities in White Houses won and lost. But the way we govern endures through debate, not disorder. This is the one thing about our country, and this is one of the most important things about our country that makes it the greatest on earth. I must admit, I didn't always find this idea so exciting when I was young. As I said, I came to Washington unsure of what I was going to do with my life. And then I ended up working for a guy named Jack Kemp. You may have heard of him. He went on to represent the people from Washington, or from Western New York, but he was a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. One of the great quarterbacks of his time. And then he represented the Buffalo area in Congress in the 1970s and the 1980s. He served in the cabinet under President H.W. Bush. And like me, he was one of our party's nominees for vice president. I first met Jack Kemp exactly where you would expect, at Tortilla Coast. It was true. I was waiting tables, you know, like you. I had student loans coming out of school. I had a few jobs, and I was a waiter, and I waited on Jack Kemp. I didn't bother him that day, but I told a friend one day I would love to have the chance of working for that man. And as luck would have it, such an opening came up. The thing about Jack was that he was an optimist all the way. He refused to accept that any part of America or the American idea could ever be written off. Here was a conservative Here was a conservative eager to go to America's bleakest communities and talk about how free enterprise would lift people out of poverty. These were the areas of the country that had not seen a Republican leader in years, if ever. I had the chance to accompany Jack on some of these visits. I saw how people took to him. I saw how he listened, how he took new lessons from each experience. He found common cause with poverty fighters on the ground. Instead of a sense of drift, I, at that time, began to feel a sense of purpose. Jack inspired me to develop my professional life to public policy. It became a vocation to me. Ideas, passionately promoted, put to the test. That's what politics can be. That's what our country can be. It can be a confident America where we have a basic faith in politics in our leaders. That sounds like a long distance from where we are right now, doesn't it? It can be a place where we have earned that faith. All of us as leaders can hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity and decency. Instead of playing to your anxieties, we can appeal to your aspirations. Instead of playing the identity politics of our base versus their base, we unite people around ideas and principles. And instead of being timid, we go bold. We don't just resort to scaring you. We dare to inspire you. We don't just oppose someone or something, we propose a clear and compelling alternative. And we don't just win your support, we win the argument. We win your enthusiasm. We win hearts and minds. We win a mandate to do what needs to be done to protect the American idea. In a confident America, we also have a basic faith in one another. That's one of the most important lessons I'd love to confer to you. We question each other's ideas vigorously, but we don't question each other's motives. If someone has a bad idea, we don't think that they're a bad person. We just think they have a bad idea. People with different ideas, they're not traitors.
All right,
They're not our enemies.
I do have a
They're
live
our neighbors.
feed out
They're our
of another Bernie
coworkers. They're our
Sanders
fellow
event,
citizens.
actually. It
Sometimes
looks
they're
like
our
a baseball
friends.
field.
Sometimes
Very
they're
cool. I'm
even
gonna
our
take
own
you
flesh
there
and
right
blood.
now.
We win! Thank you, everybody. Listen, thank you everyone for your patience. Bernie will be out very, very soon. We had long, long lines outside. We want to make sure everybody in Seattle got to come in and see Bernie, so thank you. This is a really great turnout. Bernie will be right out. Thanks so much.
guys feeling the burn? My name is Ramandeep Singh Mann, and I am here to introduce a man who needs no introduction. We all know who we're here to see today. And the funny thing is, last Sunday I was sitting, where you guys are, and I had not in my wildest dreams thought that I would be giving this speech today. But here I am, and let's get to it. I'm a person, believe it or not, who has never cared to or had the desire to be involved in anything political. I just never cared because I thought it wouldn't make a difference, and why waste my time? And why waste my time with something that can never be fixed? But this time I did get involved, and there are two main reasons why. The first is that Bernie Sanders is the complete opposite of the status quo as far as politicians go. He is different. He speaks the truth, and he is someone I can actually trust to take care of the things that matter to us. The second reason I got involved is the dangerous rise of hate speech coming from the Republicans, and especially from one candidate in particular. Initially, I treated this as my evening entertainment, cracking jokes and laughing about it with my friends. But slowly it became less and less funny and much more serious as I realized people were taking this clown seriously. Coming from the Sikh community where tying a turban and keeping long uncut hair is part of the faith, I've seen firsthand the direct impact that hate speech can have on minority communities. Too many times members of the Sikh faith have been targeted in hate crimes because they were mistaken as Muslims. I say mistaken as Muslims because the Sikh faith is actually the 5th largest religion in the world, a completely separate faith out of India. When bigots talk about banning Muslims, kicking out all undocumented immigrants, and building walls, those words hit us on Main Street in the form of verbal abuse, physical abuse, and in some cases people have even lost their lives. Being the son of Sikh immigrants, I cannot stand silently by as the Republican Party leads this nation down a dark and dangerous path. How can any of us stand by and let this happen? That's why Bernie's vision has inspired so many of us to join this revolution. And that's why it is very important to get involved and get out and caucus tomorrow, March 26th, 9 a.m. Without further ado, let's give future President Bernie Sanders a loud 12th man welcome.
Thank you, Seattle. Thank you. You know, when I was a kid, I had a dream of being at home plate in a major league ballpark. But I didn't know that I would be giving a speech. I thought I'd have a bat in my hand. So thank you all very much. What a fantastic turnout. Thank you, Seattle. Let me thank Felicia Pales, PM Marcus Lalario Band, Jawara McDuffie, the Taco Cat Band, Shama Savant, Grace Love, Dallas Roberts, Jessica Severance, Greenski Bluegrass Band, John Popper, and Roman Deep Siegman. And mostly thank all of you for coming out tonight. Tomorrow, are you guys ready to make history tomorrow? Well, at 10 a.m. in caucuses all over the state, that is exactly what we will be doing. Tomorrow morning, the great state of Washington has the opportunity to help lead this country into a political revolution. Tomorrow morning, in the great state of Washington, we are going to say loud and clear, the billionaire class cannot have it all. Tomorrow morning, we are going to tell the world that we demand a government that represents all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. Here is the political scene throughout this campaign. If there is a large voter turnout tomorrow, we'll win. If there is a low voter turnout, we'll lose. Let's make sure there is a large voter turnout. We began this campaign some 10 months ago, and when we began, all of the media experts and all of the pundits said, Bernie, you're a nice guy, you comb your hair beautifully, you're a GQ kind of guy, but really your campaign is a fringe candidacy, you can't win. Well, 11 months, 10 months have come and gone. When we began, we were 3% in the polls, 70 points behind Hillary Clinton. Yesterday, a national poll came out, we're 1 point up. We have now won 11 states. And if there are large turnouts tomorrow in Washington, Hawaii, and Alaska, we have a shot to win 3 more. And I believe that if we win here in Washington, we're going to win in California. We are going to win in Oregon, and we've got a real path toward victory to the White House. And let me also say that if we win the Democratic nomination, we are going to win the general election. Poll after poll shows us that in matchups with Donald Trump, don't worry, Trump will not become president. A recent CNN poll, consistent with many other polls, showed Hillary Clinton doing very well against Trump. She was beating him by 12 points. We were beating him by 20 points. she was tied up with Ted Cruz. We were beating him by 13 points. She was losing to John Kasich. We were beating him by 6 points. So don't let anybody tell you that Hillary Clinton is the strongest Democratic candidate to take on the Republicans. It is not true. But it is not just polls. Democrats and progressives will win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when people become demoralized and don't come out to vote. It is our campaign, as you can see here tonight. It is our campaign that is creating the incitement and the enthusiasm which will result in a huge voter turnout in November. Let me just say for a moment a few of the very important differences between Secretary Clinton and myself. And one of them has to do with how you raise money for a campaign. When we began this campaign, we had to make a very simple decision, and that decision was, should we do what every other campaign does and start a super PAC? We agreed with you. We didn't want a super PAC. We don't need a super PAC. We don't represent Wall Street, corporate America, or the billionaire class. So we did it a different way, different than any other campaign. We went to the working families. More contributions than any campaign in the history of the United States of America. Anybody here know what the average contribution is? $27. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign.
Trying to locate that feed. Looks like I lost it. I'm gonna see if I can find another source. Fox National, you're killing me. Let's see.
Secretary Clinton did it in a slightly different way. She established several super PACs, and her Our largest super PAC recently reported raising $25 million in special interest money, including $15 million from Wall Street. In addition, as many of you know, Secretary Clinton has given speeches behind closed doors to large Wall Street financial institutions for $225,000 a speech. Now, I kind of think that if somebody's going to pay you $225,000 for a speech, it must be a mind-blowing, brilliant, earth-shattering speech. It must be written in Shakespearean prose. It must be a speech that will uplift the entire world. Therefore, I think the Secretary should release the transcripts of that speech. Now, Secretary Clinton says she is prepared to release the transcripts if other people, other candidates, release their transcripts. So tonight, here in this beautiful baseball field, I am prepared to make a dramatic announcement. Are you ready? Tonight, in the beautiful city of Seattle, I am announcing that I will release all of the transcripts of my speeches to Wall Street. Are you ready? Here they are. Shh. There aren't any, no speeches. Now, I can't understand, I just can't understand why Secretary Clinton gets $225,000 and I can't even get a damn invitation to speak to Wall Street. I don't know why. Forget 225, what about 20,000, 2,000, 18 bucks? Can't get it. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that Wall Street would not be interested in hearing what I had to say. So my cell phone is on. I am waiting the call from Wall Street. If I get that call and if I get that invitation, this is what I will tell them. I will tell them that their greed and recklessness and illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. I will tell them that the middle class of this country bailed them out because their banks were too big to fail, but today 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. And I will tell them that when a handful of financial institutions has so much economic and political power, it is time to A, reestablish Glass-Steagall legislation, and B, it is time to break them up. We need a financial institution in this country which provides affordable loans to small and medium-sized businesses and to the working families of this country, not financial institutions that exist as an island unto themselves, worried only about their profits. Now, this campaign is doing well because we are listening to the American people and not just wealthy campaign contributors. We are listening to working people who tell me they can't make it on $8 or $9 an hour. We are listening to working people who tell me they can't make it for doing the right thing and leading this country to what we've got to do nationally, $15 an hour for every worker in America. This campaign is listening to senior citizens and disabled veterans. And they are telling me they cannot make it on $11,000 or $12,000 a year Social Security. Republicans want to cut Social Security. Instead, we have got some bad news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to raise Social Security benefits. This campaign is doing well because we are telling the American people the truth. And the truth is that today we have a campaign finance system which is corrupt, a system which is undermining American democracy. And that is why, together, we are going to overturn Citizens United. And why we are going to move to public funding of elections. Now, this is serious business, because when you have the Koch brothers and a handful of billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful, that is not democracy. That is oligarchy. We will not accept that. And this campaign is exposing the reality that today we are living in a rigged economy. Millions of Americans are working longer hours for low wages, yet almost all new income and wealth goes to the top 1%. America must not be a country in which the top 0.1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. We must not be an economy where the 20 wealthiest people own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans. We are not going to be an economy where the Walton family of Walmart owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. Together, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. But it is not just a corrupt campaign finance system. It is not just a rigged economy. It is a broken criminal justice system. I am tired, you are tired, of seeing videos on television of unarmed Americans being shot and killed by police. Now, I'm a former mayor. I have worked with police officers and police departments all over my state, all over this country. Vast majority of police officers are honest, hardworking, doing a very difficult job. But like any other public official, if a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. In America, we have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to make police departments reflect the diversity of the communities they serve. We have got to rethink the war on drugs. Over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have received police records for possession of marijuana. Today, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug in the Federal Controlled Substance Act, alongside of heroin. And that is why I have introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. As you all know, states make the decision regarding legalization of marijuana, but it should not be a federal crime. And when we talk about drugs, it's important to understand that we have a real crisis in this country, in my state, in New Hampshire, all over this country, of addiction to opiates and addiction to heroin. If we are going to be effective in addressing that serious crisis, we need to understand that drug abuse, alcohol abuse, substance abuse is a health issue, not a criminal issue. Today, the United States has more people in jail than any other country on earth. And not unrelated to that is that youth unemployment for our kids is sky high. For white kids, 33%. For Latino kids, 36%. African American kids, 51%. Together, we are going to protect our kids by investing in education and jobs, not jails and incarceration. This campaign is listening to women. And women are telling me they are sick and tired of working for 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. They want the whole damn dollar. And I know that every man here will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. You know, we got Republicans running all over the country talking about family values, how much they love families. Everybody here must understand that when Republicans talk about family values, what they are saying is no woman here tonight in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. They are saying that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to get married. I disagree. Now, Jane and I have been married for 27 years. We have 4 kids, 7 grandchildren. And we believe in family, but our views a little bit different than Republicans. When I talk about family values, I talk about ending the international disgrace of the United States being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. This campaign is listening to young people. And I am so excited that all over this country, young people are standing up and fighting for their rights. Young people are the future of our nation, and they want a say in the future of our nation. Young people tell me that their parents, their teachers, everybody said to them, go out and get the best education that you can. That it is important for you, it's important for our economy. You go to school and you get all of the education you can. And that was the right advice. Problem is that many of these young people have come out of school $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 in debt. What this campaign is about is asking the American people to think outside of the box, to think outside of the status quo, to understand that we can change in a fundamental way the status quo. It doesn't have to continue. Think about it for 1 second. Why are we punishing millions of people for getting an education? Why are we forcing them to pay off outrageous levels of student debt, in some cases for decades? We should be rewarding people for getting an education, not punishing them. Look, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was a great idea that we had public education systems throughout our country which guaranteed free public education to all from 1st grade to 12th grade. That was an enormous achievement. But in 2016, the economy and the world is different than it was 50 years ago. People today need more education. "50 years ago, a high school degree was the equivalent of what a college degree is today. It enabled you to go out and get a decent job. The world has changed. The economy has changed, and our conception of public education has got to change, and that is why I believe that we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, some people think that this is a radical idea. It is not a radical idea. Germany does it, Scandinavia does it, countries all over the world invest in their young people because they understand a well-educated population is the future of their country. we have got to deal with this crisis of student debt, which means that we have got to give those millions of people now carrying student debt the opportunity to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. There are today about 11 million people in this country who are undocumented. And what the Latino community is telling me is they are tired of living in the shadows. They are tired of being exploited. They are tired of living in fear. They want, I want, comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. And let me just say that if the Congress does not do their job and pass comprehensive immigration reform, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to do everything I can. Immigration reform is about bringing families together, not separating them. It is about ending the deportations we see today. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking me how it can be that this country has trillions of dollars to spend on a war in Iraq that we never should have gotten into in the first place. A war which I strongly opposed. But somehow we can spend trillions on that war, but we don't have the funds available to rebuild crumbling inner cities all over this country. Well, we're going to change those priorities. No more tax breaks for billionaires and large corporations. We're going to invest in inner cities, create great schools, put people to work, provide health care to all. I was in Flint, Michigan 3 or 4 weeks ago, and what I observed in Flint and what I heard from people was literally something that not only broke my heart, it was hard for me to believe was occurring in the United States of America in the year 2016. In this country, children are being poisoned with excessive lead in the water in America in 2016. Now, Flint may be the worst example of a collapsing infrastructure, but it is not the only example. All over this country, hundreds of cities have inadequate water systems, inadequate wastewater plants, bridges are deteriorating, roads are inadequate, our rail system fallen behind many other countries, levees and dams need enormous amounts of work. We can create 11 million good-paying jobs rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Native American community. Now, I don't have to tell anyone here tonight who has read 5 minutes of American history that from day one, when the first settlers came to this country before we were a nation, Native Americans were lied to, they were treated in absolutely disgraceful ways. Treaties negotiated in good faith were broken. We owe the Native American community far more than we can repay. Some of the best parts of our culture, some of the very best parts of our culture come from the first Americans. Our understanding of the environment and the need to be part of nature, not to destroy nature, comes from Native Americans. But today, all over this country, we find on reservations and in Native American communities unemployment, extremely high suicide rates, horrific alcoholism, drug addiction, schools that are inadequate, healthcare that is inadequate. I pledge that if elected president, there will be a fundamental change in the relationship of the United States government to the Native American communities. When we talk about the crises we face as a nation, at the top of the list is the understanding that climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already causing major problems in our country and around the world. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable to future generations. This is not an American issue. This is a global issue. We have got to lead the way in working with Russia, China, India, countries all over the world in standing up to the fossil fuel industry and in telling them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. We know exactly what has to be done, and that is to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. The future of energy in America is not coal, it is not oil, it is not gas. It is wind, it is solar, it is geothermal, it is sustainable energy. And when we make that transformation, we clean up the environment, we combat climate change, and we create millions of decent paying jobs. Now, I have been roundly criticized for saying this, so let me say it again. I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. Now, the affordable, I'm on the committee that helped write the Affordable Care Act, and it has done a lot of good. We've done away with this obscenity called pre-existing conditions. Some 17 million people now have insurance who previously did not. We have done away with discrimination against women in terms of the cost of their health care premiums. But, today in America, we remain the only major country that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. The UK does it, France does it, Germany does it, Holland does it, Italy does it, Scandinavia does it, Canada does it. And in my view, we have got to do the same thing here in America. Today, 29 million people still have no health insurance, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. Is that right? And we are being ripped off in an unconscionable way by the drug companies who are charging us the highest prices in the world for our medicine. And on top of all of that, we end up paying by far more money for health care per capita than any other country on earth. In my view, we have got to have the courage to take on the insurance companies, take on the drug companies, and pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And when we do that, we will save the middle-class families thousands of dollars a year on their health care costs. Now, everybody here knows that real change never takes place from the top on down. Real change historically always takes place from the bottom on up, when millions of people come together and say the status quo is unacceptable. 100 years ago, when workers were being ruthlessly exploited, when they were treated like animals, when they had no right on the job, when their wages were inadequate, they stood up and they said, we are human beings, we're going to form unions, we're going to bargain collectively. And when workers formed unions, wages went up, and every American worker benefited. And I want to take this opportunity tonight to thank the International Longshore and Warehouse Union for their support. And to thank the many other millions of union workers who are supporting this campaign. For hundreds of years, African Americans and their allies worked together to say that in America, segregation, bigotry, discrimination was not what this country is supposed to be about. It didn't come from the top on down. It came from people who stood up, who fought, who went to jail, who were killed, who were beaten, to say that in this country we will wipe out racism. We forget this, but 100 years ago, a very short time from an historical perspective, 100 years ago, women in America could not vote, could not go to the schools they wanted to, could not do the work and the jobs they wanted to do. But women and their male allies said that in this country, women will not be second-class citizens. And change took place from the bottom on down. And then, if we were here, and I want you to think about this, we were here 10 years ago, somebody jumps up and says, you know, I think that gay marriage will be legal in the United States by the year 2015. Legal in 50 states. Very few people would have believed that would have been possible. But what happened is, for decades, the gay community and their straight allies said that people in this country have a right to love each other regardless of their gender. Against horrific bigotry and hatred. And my state of Vermont was one of the leaders in this country in the fight for gay marriage. And I saw, we saw the tension, the prejudices that took place. But because of the struggle of the gay community and their straight allies, we achieved gay marriage in 50 states in this country. From the bottom on up. And let me give you another example that this city should be very proud of in terms of real change. This city, if we were here 7 years ago, and somebody jumps up and they say, Bernie, you know, the $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a starvation wage, it is a disgrace, we've got to raise it to $15 an hour. What most people around them would have said, $15 an hour, you're nuts. You are trying to double, more than double the minimum wage. It's too radical an idea. It can't happen. Think smaller. But what happened is that all over this country, people in the fast food industry, people who worked at McDonald's, at Burger King, at Wendy's, they went out on strike. And I was privileged to march with them in Washington, D.C. They went out on strike. They protested. They went to the community, and they said to America, we can't live on $7.25 an hour. And then, right here in Seattle, your city council said, we're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And then suddenly Los Angeles, San Francisco, $15 an hour. Our Oregon, New York State, $15 an hour. And millions of American workers will be able to live with a shred of dignity because of that movement. And that is what change is about. It is what change has always been about. It is when people look around them and say the status quo is not acceptable. And other people will tell them, you can't do it. You want to wipe out racism, you want to wipe out segregation, you want to wipe out homophobia, you want to end discrimination against workers. You can't do it. Don't think so big. I disagree. And right now, we are at a pivotal moment in American history where millions of people are looking around this country and they're beginning to see that grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality not acceptable. Trade policy which cost us millions of jobs, not acceptable. Millions of people leaving college deeply in debt, not acceptable. Women working for 79 cents on the dollar, not acceptable. The United States having the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country, not acceptable. A corrupt campaign finance system, not acceptable. A broken criminal justice system, not acceptable. The fact that we're the only major country on earth not to have health care for all or paid family and medical leave, not acceptable. And that is where we are today. Millions of people are saying the status quo is not acceptable. We need a political revolution. I am the only candidate for president who will tell you a simple truth, and that is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can address the major crises facing this country unless tens of millions of people stand up, fight back. And demand a government which represents all of us, not just the 1%. And if we stand together, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, gay and straight, men and women, people born in this country, people who came to this country, if we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Our job is to think big, not small. Our job is to have a vision of what this country can be. And it is a vision which says that all of our people can have a decent standard of living, where we have a vibrant democracy, where all of us determine the future, not just the few. Now, Donald Trump is not going to become president of the United States. He is not going to become president because the American people understand that bringing people together is what makes us strong, and it trumps dividing us up. The American people understand that togetherness, supporting each other, that when you are in trouble, we are there for you. When my family is in trouble, you are there for us. That togetherness always trumps selfishness. And most importantly, the American people understand that we are not going to elect a president who insults Mexicans and Latinos, who insults Muslims, who insults women, who insults veterans, who insults African Americans. And it was a candidate running like he was in a cafeteria food fight in the 8th grade. But most importantly, I think, the American people understand what every major religion on earth has taught us, whether it is Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Sikh religion, whatever religion, has always taught us that love trumps hatred. Tomorrow morning, 12 hours from now, people of Washington will have the opportunity to make a very profound statement, and that is that Washington will help lead this country forward into a political revolution. If there is a large voter turnout tomorrow, we will win. If there is a low voter turnout, we will lose. Please come out tomorrow. Bring your friends and your relatives. Let's make history tomorrow. Thank you.
That's Bernie Sanders in Seattle, Washington at Safeco Field. What is Safeco? Safeco sounds familiar to me. Oh, I think they're somehow related to my somehow related to stuff my family does. I wanted to give you some local stuff next. To top off your Friday, just so you can have a better idea of what we have coming up at 9 and 10 on our local television news broadcast. I think, perhaps. Oops. And I don't think I have my videos that I'm supposed to have in my system. Yuck. Ugh. We can look at some from yesterday.
The Diamondbacks, could they be leaving Chase Field in downtown Phoenix or even Arizona altogether? That is the big question tonight. The teams want out of its lease unless there are major improvements done to the stadium.
The Diamondbacks are even threatening to sue Maricopa County if their demands aren't met. Troy Hayden is here with the new details. Troy.
Yeah, I can imagine fans are very happy to hear this. The Diamondbacks leaving Chase Field and maybe Phoenix altogether. That seems to be the threat coming from the team this afternoon. The D-backs saying Chase Field needs nearly $200 million in repairs. The county, they say, isn't doing those repairs. And if they aren't done, they want to be let out of their 30-year lease. A letter from the team to county supervisors saying, quote, we are requesting that the Maricopa County Stadium District allow AZPB Limited Partnership, basically the ownership group, the right to take such actions as it deems necessary in order to move and play Diamondbacks baseball games in a location other than Chase Field, saying basically they want to be let out of their deal. The Diamondbacks' current lease doesn't expire until 2028, and under that agreement, the team can't go anywhere. The county says taxpayers spent $238 million building Chase Field, and the D-backs can't just walk away from that. The county manager, in fact, speaking just minutes ago, saying he doesn't think this is an issue of maintenance that hasn't been done. He says the D-backs are trying to get their rent reduced.
Let me make it clear, in none of those meetings with the Diamondbacks have they raised the issue of us not adequately maintaining the facility. What they have brought up is their desire to reduce the amount of rent that they pay the stadium district for use of Chase Field. We have made it clear over those 4 years that we cannot significantly reduce the rent at Chase Field because that's the revenue that we use to maintain those facilities.
So that's the county side of things. Diamondbacks President Derek Hall is going to speak to the media in about a half an hour out at Chase Field to give more of the Diamondbacks side of this. So basically the D-backs threatening to leave Chase Field and possibly Phoenix in some sort of negotiation here. So we have a crew heading to the Derek Hall event. We'll bring you updates as we get them from there. Reporting live, Troy Hayden, Fox 10 News.
This was a stunner out of left field. The Diamondbacks, could they be leaving Chase Field? Troy, investigators in Mesa are calling a deadly fire tonight suspicious.
A 75-year-old man who lived there died, and Fox 10's Marcy Jones is live in Mesa with the latest. Marcy?
Guys, it's just a really tough day here in this tight-knit Mesa neighborhood. Now, I'm going to step out of the way so that you can see where this happened. This is the house that Joseph lived in. They called him Joe around here. They say when you needed him, he was here, and they are deeply saddened to have lost him to what they call such a senseless act. Mesa police say last night 74-year-old Joseph Chenard and two friends were having dinner a few houses down from his own home when he was alerted it was on fire. Witnesses say Chenard was concerned about his car parked out front and ran into the burning home to get his keys, against the advice of others. Unfortunately, he never returned. Neighbors say they're in total shock, but told me they believe this is part of a string of arsons they've seen in the past.
They almost had the fire put out. But when Joe went inside, it just blew. It wasn't a big boom or anything. The flames just shot up, and that was it. Nobody was going to survive that. You could just tell from seeing that. Everybody's going to miss Joe. Everybody. He was a neighbor. He knew almost everybody, and if you needed something special, he'd do it for you.
Now, Mesa PD, the homicide unit, as well as the fire department were out here a little bit earlier. They're still investigating. Right now, the fire is listed as suspicious. Reporting live, Marcy Jones, Fox 10 News.
Thanks.
All right, and it's 9 p.m. If you are wanting to watch our live local television news broadcast, you can do that by going to fox10phoenix.com/live, and you can watch Actually, tonight it's John Hook and Troy Hayden. They're anchoring the program between 9 and 10:30. Richard's here for sports. Our own Dave Muncie with the weather. He said it's going to be beautiful for my birthday on Sunday. I'm actually quite excited about that. So fox10phoenix.com/live to watch our live television news broadcast. Follow Fox 10 Phoenix on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Give us a like. And we are Fox 10 News Now Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.